Yes. Brendan was born, he's 25 years old now. Could you say which one's a camera? Or
All
am I supposed to be looking?
talk to all of them.
My dear. Just talk to us all as a happy family.
We all go, don't worry.
Yes, this is Brendan. He's 25 years old. He was vaccine damaged. His first vaccine he had in his life was 6 months of age. That was a DPT vaccine. 2 hours after that, he went into high-pitched screaming and raging fever for about 48 hours. And then he didn't look at us after that. You know, he wasn't. He just wasn't there, and very agitated. But about 2 months after that, he recovered. And then we thought, oh, this is okay, he's developing normally. He was walking 6 months 1 week, crawling 6 months 1 week and walking 8 months 1 week independently, very strong. And he had about 25 words in his vocabulary at the age of 17 months, and that's when he got his MMR vaccine. And after that, within 10 days of that vaccine, he started bashing his head on the walls, bashing all his toys. He didn't play any more with toys since then. That time he's never played appropriately with toys. He went into screaming and running around in circles, and he wouldn't look at us anymore. And I was breastfeeding him at the time. That was 17 months, and he just lost interest and didn't want my eye contact when I was breastfeeding him. Just pushed me away, and we just lost him. He stopped speaking, and that was the end of it. And basically, he's 25 years old now. He's still in nappies.
Devastating.
And
Is there any doubt in your mind that it was the MMR shot that did it?
well, no, because I told the doctors when I came he was 17 months of age at the time, and then I saw over the period of months that every word that he learnt was gone, all the places gone, and I'm thinking, oh, maybe he's just the terrible twos, you know. But when he was about 2, I thought, no, he's not. This is not the terrible twos. He's not progressing at all. So I went to the doctors and I said, look, he stopped speaking. And they said, oh, he'll be right, he'll start speaking again. And I was like, no, this is not right. So I went to the baby clinic in Brisbane, and they said, it's very serious when your child stops speaking and regresses. So they put him into the Mater Hospital, and they ran lots and lots of tests. I mean, lumbar punctures, MRIs, everything. They could not find anything genetically wrong with him or anything reason for this development regression. So that was what at that time they classed his diagnosis as development regression.
Has anyone in the medical industry acknowledged that it could be the vaccines that could cause this?
Oh yes, because we went to, I won't mention 2 specialists, well actually 2 specialists we were seeing at the time in the Mater. We told them at the time, now this is 1994, we told them at the time, this all happened after my son had the MMR vaccine. We told them that. And I said, I want my son's tidal levels tested, and I want, you know, things done to find out why this happened to him. And they, when we told them we thought it was the MMR vaccine, they looked very uncomfortable, like they'd seen this before, you know. And it wasn't until he was about, after they'd run all these tests on him and they couldn't find a medical reason for him to regress, they said, looks like he's got autism, off you go to the autistic centre and we finish with you, because we've got no medical, if it doesn't come up in a test, you haven't got a problem, you know. Push you off to the autistic centre, where they supposedly were put on waiting list for 3 months to get help with his challenging behaviour, which at the time was very, very severe. I mean, he was jumping on people at 3 and 4 years old. He was jumping on car bonnets and car roofs. He was running away all the time.
So there was a waiting list even back then.
Well, yes, I went to an autistic conference that the Autistic Centre put on, and I stood up and complained in the audience of how when I was in extreme, you know, frustration trying to deal with this challenge, which I'd never seen before. I'm a high school teacher, so I'd never seen this before, and I was previously a nurse. And I'd never seen this before, so this was something I'd never come across before. This type of behaviour, I thought, this is weird. I've never seen a child behave like this before. You know, bouncing off the walls, just jumping off, climbing onto things, jumping off high places and landing, not on his feet but on his knees. He was trying to inflict pain on himself. He was draping himself over the grills of the column heaters, and just to try to feel pain. He was smashing glass all the time, smashing all the light fittings because he wanted to hear the noise. He was trying to burn himself on things just to feel some pain, to feel his body. You know, you could tell the sensory issues were really severe.
How are things now with him?
Well, we had him tested about 18 for an IQ test at the Griffith University. They said he functions around about a 2-year-old. In some areas with language less, and some life skills maybe about 4-year-old. But he doesn't He doesn't dress himself. He doesn't shower himself. He has to be toileted. He has to have his teeth brushed. His food cut up for him. He has to be watched all the time because he absconds all the time. He'll jump into. Walks into strangers' houses all the time. If you don't watch him, he'll just walk in, and he says he's looking for their pool. He'll walk through a front door and he'll say, "Pool." And we've got a pool of our own, and that's why we bought it, because he was doing that, running away. But then he became incontinent just recently, and so he's had a lot of gut issues.
So it's just challenge after challenge.
Oh.
So it hasn't actually stopped at all.
Oh no, it just changes.
Ever since that day,
6 months ago we had fecal smearing, and then we had pica where he was eating eggshells and going through the bins and eating food and just shoving everything. So it just keeps going on and on and on. You know, I'm 64 years of age. I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this by myself and my husband. He's an only child, so, and then you worry about what happens when you've gone, you know. But you get very tired because you get very little sleep. Because he doesn't sleep well, he jumps around like seizures in his sleep all night. So he himself can't cement the learning for the day because he's been wiped out by this muscle twitching that his body can't relax to sleep. So
So do you feel that you've been wronged in making you think that the MMR vaccine was safe and effective and every child should have it? Do you think that you were wronged in order to do that?
At the time when I was looking at whether or not he should get the vaccine, I remember looking up the Merck manual, because I used to like reading the Merck manual. It's a medical manual, very thick one. And I remember reading up measles, what measles caused, and I remember knowing a little bit about SSPE, and I remember seeing in the Merck manual that if you get a bad reaction to measles, 10 years down the track you can possibly get SSPE. I thought, oh, maybe that's why I should give him, although the fact that we all got measles, mumps, chickenpox, and rubella as kids and had no problems at all. I didn't think about that. I also didn't realize as I was breastfeeding, I was passing on my antibodies, so he didn't need the vaccines anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So, but you see, I was just going by what the schedule said you have to have.
And that schedule's getting bigger and bigger by the year almost.
Yeah, that's right. And I stopped giving him a lot of the vaccines. He only had a few vaccines, very few vaccines. I've forgotten the my train of thought, but...
Well, what do you think on the fact that they're no longer calling it a childhood immunisation register? I'll spit it out. They've now changed it to the Australian Immunisation Register. We all think that that's actually moved to get
adults.
Every single person, adults included,
yes, of course, yes.
on the register.
Yes, that's right.
Now, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, it's absolutely shocking, because I don't believe that vaccines are the panacea that they're supposed to be. I don't believe that they're working, because all I'm seeing now, I mean, Brendan was vaccinated for pertussis, but when he was 18, he got pertussis at high school. He gave it to me. We were coughing for 3 months, but we didn't lose a day of, sickness from it. But that was because the big push for pertussis meant that they were spreading in the community. People were spreading in the community, and I had never seen pertussis. And at that point, I must have been about 59 years old, and I'd been a nurse and a teacher. I'd never seen pertussis. And then it appears, because this new vaccine is spreading it to everybody, because we didn't need to get it as kids. It just was not around. Same with diphtheria. I remember when I got the DPT vaccine for him and he had the bad reaction, I told the doctor, he says, I don't know why they're giving this vaccine. He says, I haven't seen these diseases for years. So there wasn't any need.
The schedule gets bigger and so does the disease.
But I took Brendan to a behaviour specialist here, and I remember telling him, he says, when did you notice that your child stopped speaking? And I says, it's right after the MMR vaccine. And he had his pen in his hand, he dropped it, and he said to me, he says, I know another world specialist, and I happen to know this one, I won't mention his name, but he's very famous. And he says, between you and me, he said, I can't say this, but he says this other specialist that I know believes that the vaccines are implicated. And this was in 1995 at the time. This was long before Dr. Wakefield came out. And then when I found out by accident that Dr. Wakefield was doing the study through another doctor in England, Dr. Rosemary Waring, who was studying metabolic disorders, she said, I know a doctor in England who's studying children like, vaccine. Well, she just said people who had bad reactions to MMR, and she said, I'll give you his number. She gave me his number, and I phoned up his number. And that was the day that he was giving the conference to the media. And his secretary said, oh, look, he can't speak to you now. He's giving the conference to the media about his new paper he's just brought out. And I said to her, oh, well, he won't call me back. I live in Australia. And she said, oh, yes, he will. And she says when he comes back from the conference, but I says it'll be 4 o'clock in the morning. I says he can call me, and sure enough, he called me from England after that conference, and he told me to get hold of his paper and to get Brendan a colonoscopy and endoscopy to see if he had lymphoid nodular hyperplasia, which I did, which he did have. You know, so I knew then that I was on the right track. But I knew this before Dr. Wakefield's paper came out. It had nothing to do with him. I instinctively knew it, but like all the other parents did, we instinctively knew it. Because when you've got a high-functioning child who then stops talking, stops playing with his skills within a matter of days, and then bangs his head in pain, and crashes all his toys on his, bangs his head on the concrete, and this went on for quite a long time. This child has a sort of chronic encephalitis, and that's what he basically still can have today.
Now, what do you say to the folks out there who are new parents looking to perhaps vaccinate their children, who are on the fence maybe? What do you say to these folks?
Well, I personally would just say trust your gut instinct. If you're going to inject a lot of toxins into your child, you should be reading the manufacturer's packet insert first to look at what's in the vaccine and who shouldn't have it, who shouldn't be having this vaccine, particularly children who are on cortisone or things like that. And also you should be looking at the side effects of it and looking in your family history to see whether or not that's been the case. In other words, you have to make an educated, informed choice, which, you know, you should be given that information freely. But when I go onto the website for the immunisation information booklets they hand out, that you will not see any links at all to the packet inserts. You have to scratch around. In fact, it even says we discourage people from looking at the packet inserts. It even says that on their websites, which is fair. And as I was saying back before, I went to the Merck manual. When I looked at the Merck manual, I cross-referenced, going back to the story, I cross-referenced SSPE. After the vaccine damaged him, I cross-referenced, because I suspected he had like a form of SSPE, a chronic form, and I cross-referenced it in the Merck manual, and it says SSPE can be caught basically from the measles or the measles vaccine.
There you go. So
but they've since, two of my Merck manuals say that, but the later Merck manuals, they've rubbed that out. And they said, oh, it's just a coincidence, you probably got measles anyway. You know, in other words, when you got the vaccine. But he got measles from the vaccine. 4 days after the vaccine, he got the measles. And he went into fever, but it was 10 days after the vaccine that he got the encephalitis, which then was the end of the...
So basically weigh up the risk of catching a disease that you can get over in a matter of days or a lifetime.
And also, and measles, it's a very mild, if you're a reasonably healthy person, it's a very mild disorder. I mean, we used to love to get diseases like these when kids at school because... because you were hoping you'd get a day off school because nobody was ever sick. You know, and you prayed, and I was used to be so cheated because I always got mine in school holidays. And I never got to have a day off school. Yeah. So, as I said, no one was sick, because I'm 64 now, and I mean, I lived in an era when kids just didn't get sick, you know, and didn't have allergies, and we all got these diseases. We were home for a few days. We were basically quarantined. We weren't even sick in bed. We're basically just quarantined at home, and we used to get bored after a few days and hope we could go back to school. You know, so that was what it was like. So
just for the record again, what were your names again, sorry?
Oh, I don't want to give my surname, but it's Jane and Brendan and Barry.
That's fine. Thank you very much for your time.
And is it okay if I put this on YouTube or not?
Yes,
anonymously.
yes,
I'll just
yes,
edit it.
yes.
That's just what I'd ask.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I just
So
give
you don't
you
want
the sign now?
No problem at all. Yeah, sure. Yeah, trust me. That's fine.
I saw his name.
It says Brendan. Brendan, come here, please. Brendan, come here.
What are you up to
Can you write your name? You write your name. B.
E. N. D.
D.